Have you ever looked at your life and realized that somewhere along the way you stopped growing? It's not because you became lazy. It's because life has a strange way of convincing us that survival is enough, that getting through the day is victory. But I want to remind you of something powerful. You are not built just to survive. You are built to rebuild. Every setback you've faced, every disappointment, every failure, they are not signs that you are weak. They are invitations to start again, this time with experience, wisdom, and resilience. Rebuilding yourself isn't about erasing who you were. It's about upgrading who you are. It's about looking at your past, not with shame, but with gratitude, because it showed you what doesn't work. And now you have the chance to build something better. Let's be honest, change is painful. Growth is uncomfortable. But nothing is more painful than staying the same person when you know you can become more. You can't rebuild yourself if you're still holding on to the ruins of who you were. You must let go of old habits, old excuses, and even old versions of yourself that no longer serve your future. The process of rebuilding starts with clarity, asking yourself why you want to become unstoppable. When your why is strong, your how becomes clear. Discipline, effort, consistency, they all begin to make sense when you know what you're building toward. And here's the truth, you will fall again, you will doubt again. But each time you will rise faster, stronger, and more focused. Because rebuilding isn't a one-time event, it's a lifelong commitment to growth. Unstoppable people are not born that way. They are built piece by piece, habit by habit, day by day. They are those who refuse to stay broken. They wake up every morning with a simple belief, I may not control everything, but I control how I rebuild. So if life has knocked you down good, that means you've been tested, and now you have a reason to rise. Rebuild your mind with new thoughts. Rebuild your habits with discipline. Rebuild your confidence with small victories. And when you do, you'll realize something extraordinary. You don't just rebuild yourself to become unstoppable. You rebuild yourself because you finally understand. You always were. 5 keynotes of the speech, rebuilding is not starting over, it's starting wiser. Every failure carries the blueprint for your next version. Let go of the old to make room for the new. Transformation requires shedding habits, mindsets, and fears that hold you back. Clarity gives direction to your growth. Knowing why you want to change creates unstoppable momentum. Consistency beats motivation. True rebuilding happens through daily, disciplined actions, not momentary inspiration. Being unstoppable means taking control of your response, not your circumstances. Power begins the moment you choose how to rebuild after the fall. When most people face failure, their first instinct is to think they've lost everything. They see the collapse of a plan, a dream, or even a version of themselves as the end. But what if that collapse isn't destruction? What if it's preparation? The truth is, when you rebuild, you are not going back to the beginning. You are moving forward, carrying the lessons that only experience can teach. Every time you fail, you don't return to zero. You return to the starting line with more knowledge, sharper instincts, and a clearer understanding of what it takes to win. That's what makes rebuilding so powerful. It's not repetition. It's evolution. When you rebuild yourself, you're not discarding your past, you're decoding it. Every mistake, every regret, every wrong turn becomes a teacher. The difference between starting over and starting wiser is awareness. A person who starts over tries to erase their past, hoping to forget what went wrong. But a person who starts wiser studies their past. They extract meaning from it. They learn the patterns, the habits, and the decisions that shape their outcomes, both good and bad. Then they use that awareness to rebuild more intentionally. Think of it this way. A builder who constructs a house that collapses in the storm doesn't give up on architecture. He studies the cracks, the weaknesses, the design flaws. The next time he builds, the foundation is stronger, the structure more stable, and the vision more refined. Life works exactly the same way. Every failure reveals the weak points in your mindset, your strategy, or your belief system. If you're willing to study those weaknesses rather than hide from them, you gain the wisdom that transforms your next attempt. The danger comes when we see failure as a signal to stop. That's when growth ends. The most unstoppable people in the world aren't the ones who never fall. They're the ones who treat every fall as research. They don't take failure personally. They take it seriously. They analyze it, learn from it, and adapt. They understand that pain is information. Every setback carries data that tells you what to adjust. Maybe you trusted the wrong people. Maybe you moved too fast. Maybe you didn't believe in yourself enough. Whatever the cause, it becomes a lesson, not a label. The process of rebuilding yourself wiser requires humility. You must be honest about what didn't work. You must be willing to see where you contributed to your own pain. That's hard. It's easier to blame circumstances or other people. But the moment you accept responsibility, you take back control. Because if you can see how your choices shape the past, you can shape the future differently. Self-awareness is the foundation of all rebuilding. Without it, you repeat the same mistakes in different settings, thinking life is unfair when in truth, it's just consistent in giving you what you haven't yet learned. When you start wiser, you also move differently. You no longer rush the process just to feel progress. You understand that growth has its own timeline. You start to appreciate the small improvements, the quiet discipline, and the long-term thinking that real transformation requires. You stop seeking shortcuts because you've learned they cost more than they save. Wisdom teaches patience, and patience builds power. You'll notice that the second time you try something, the fear is still there, but it's quieter. The uncertainty remains, but you're stronger. You don't need external validation the way you once did because you've already proven to yourself that you can rebuild. And that inner proof becomes your anchor. You no longer fear falling because you know you can rise. You've done it before. You know how the process feels, the confusion, the doubt, the exhaustion, but you also know it leads somewhere better. That knowing turns anxiety into confidence. Starting wiser also means setting boundaries that protect your progress. You begin to recognize what drains your energy, what distracts your focus, and what doesn't align with your values. You no longer chase everything that looks like opportunity. You choose what matches your purpose. And that decision-making clarity saves you from repeating cycles that once kept you stuck. Every lesson from the past becomes a filter for your future choices. That's the gift of rebuilding. The next time you look at your life and feel like you've lost everything, remember, you haven't lost your experience. You still have the lessons, the skills, and the resilience that the journey gave you. Those are assets more valuable than success itself, because success can fade, but wisdom compounds. And when you rebuild with wisdom, you're not creating a fragile version of yourself that breaks easily again. You're creating a version that bends but never breaks. So no, rebuilding yourself is not starting from scratch. You are not who you were when you began. You've been refined by failure, strengthened by pain, and educated by experience. You're not weaker because of what happened. You're wiser because of it. And wisdom is what makes you unstoppable the next time you rise. Rebuilding yourself always begins with release. You cannot step into a new version of your life while still carrying the weight of who you used to be. Yet most people try. They cling to old stories, old identities, and old pain as if those things define them. But they don't. They only confine them. You can't grow into your future while gripping tightly to your past. It's like trying to climb a mountain with your arms full of baggage. No matter how strong you are, you'll never reach the top until you let something go. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting everything that came before. It means accepting it, learning from it, and choosing not to let it control you anymore. Many people confuse holding on with strength, when in reality, strength often looks like release. It takes courage to walk away from what's familiar, especially when that familiarity feels safe. But the same habits, thoughts, and relationships that once made you feel secure can become the very things that block your growth. The walls you built to protect yourself can eventually become your prison if you never take them down. Letting go of the old starts with recognizing what the old really is. It's not just the past, it's the patterns you repeat from it. It's the limiting beliefs you inherited, the fears you've nurtured, and the versions of yourself you've outgrown, but still act like. Maybe it's the voice that says you're not enough. Maybe it's the guilt that tells you to stay small. Maybe it's the comfort zone that disguises itself as peace, but is actually stagnation. Every person carries something that no longer belongs to their next chapter, and most never realize that they're the ones keeping it alive. The hardest part of letting go is that the old version of you will resist. It will whisper that change is dangerous, that you might fail, that you should stay where things are predictable. Your mind will try to protect you from the unknown, but growth doesn't happen in the known. Growth requires uncertainty. It demands that you step into territory where you can't see the outcome yet, where faith must replace control. And that's where real transformation begins. When you let go of old habits and identities, you create space, and that space is sacred. It's uncomfortable at first because emptiness feels strange. We're used to being filled with something, even if that something is pain or fear. But emptiness isn't a loss, it's preparation. It's the pause between who you were and who you're becoming. It's the clearing of the ground before new seeds are planted. If you rush to fill that space too soon, you risk repeating the same patterns that kept you stuck. But if you allow yourself to sit in that space, to breathe, to reflect, you start to see clearly what deserves to stay and what must go. Letting go is also about forgiving, not just others, but yourself. You cannot rebuild when you're still at war with your own past. Every mistake, every failure, every decision that didn't work out has already served its purpose. It taught you something. Forgiveness doesn't excuse what happened. It releases your attachment to it. It allows you to reclaim the energy that's been trapped in regret and redirect it toward rebuilding. Holding on to guilt and resentment only drains the strength you need to move forward. Sometimes the hold you have to release isn't a mistake, but a mindset. You may need to let go of your obsession with perfection, your need for approval, or your fear of rejection. These invisible weights shape your choices more than you realize. When you start to release them, you begin to act from authenticity rather than fear. You stop living to prove yourself and start living to express yourself. That's when life begins to expand in ways you couldn't have imagined while you were still confined by your old limits. It's also important to understand that letting go is not a one-time event, it's a practice. You will outgrow people, goals, and even dreams as you evolve. That doesn't mean you failed, it means you're alive. Growth requires constant shedding. Just like a tree drops its leaves to make way for new ones, you must continually release what no longer nourishes you. You can't rebuild yourself into something new if you're still trying to fit into the mold of who you once were. Every version of you served a purpose for its time. The person you were helped you survive, but the person you're becoming will help you thrive. That transition requires bravery. It asks you to trust that the unknown will bring better things than the comfort of what you already know. And while it's tempting to keep pieces of the past as reminders, remember that not everything from your old life deserves a place in your new one. When you finally let go of the old, you'll feel something unexpected: lightness. You'll realize how much energy you've been spending holding on to things that don't belong anymore. That energy, once freed, becomes the fuel for rebuilding. You'll start to see new opportunities, meet new people, and think new thoughts, because space always attracts growth. The more you release, the more life gives you. Letting go is not the end of something, it's the opening for everything. Every transformation begins with a moment of clarity, that sharp, honest realization of where you are and where you truly want to go. Without clarity, even the hardest work can lead you in circles. You can pour your energy, time, and heart into something, but if you don't know why you're doing it or where it's leading, progress becomes an illusion. Clarity doesn't just define your goals, it defines your purpose. It is the compass that keeps your growth aligned with meaning rather than motion. When people talk about success, they often focus on action: work harder, do more, push faster. But effort without direction is like running on a treadmill. You're exhausted but still in the same place. Growth without clarity creates noise, not results. It's easy to get caught in the chaos of doing everything and achieving nothing that truly fulfills you. Clarity forces you to pause, reflect, and ask deeper questions. What do I actually want? Why does it matter? Who am I becoming through this process? Those questions strip away the distractions and guide your energy toward what's essential. Clarity begins with honesty, the kind that is sometimes uncomfortable. It requires admitting what isn't working, what doesn't feel right, and what no longer aligns with your values. Many people avoid this step because honesty exposes gaps between who they are and who they want to be. But that gap is not failure, it's a roadmap. The clearer you are about that distance, the easier it becomes to close it. Without clarity, you may find yourself chasing goals that look good to others but feel empty to you. With clarity, you stop living for validation and start living with intention. The reason clarity is so powerful is that it transforms confusion into focus. It takes your scattered thoughts and aligns them toward a single direction. You stop multitasking your life. You stop trying to be everything for everyone. You begin to filter your choices through the lens of your purpose. Every yes and every no becomes intentional. You no longer chase what's popular. You pursue what's meaningful. That's how growth becomes sustainable, not exhausting. Because when your actions are aligned with your clarity, even hard work feels lighter. You're not just busy, you're building something that matters. Clarity also gives courage. When you know exactly why you're doing something, fear loses its power. Doubt still appears, but it doesn't control you. You can walk through uncertainty because your direction is clear. You might not know every step, but you know the destination. That knowing creates confidence. You become less reactive to what others say or think. You stop comparing your path to someone else's because you finally understand your own. And that understanding makes you unstoppable in ways external motivation never can. To gain clarity, you must also learn the art of stillness. In a world that glorifies constant motion, few people take the time to sit in silence and think. But clarity doesn't shout, it whispers. It arrives when you create space to listen. To your thoughts, to your intuition, to your inner truth. Sometimes clarity doesn't come from doing more, but from pausing long enough to recognize what's been calling you all along. It's often already there. It's just buried under noise, obligations, and expectations. When you remove the clutter, clarity surfaces naturally. There's a simple truth about growth: direction matters more than speed. You can move slowly and still be miles ahead of those who move fast without purpose. Clarity ensures that your growth isn't random. It gives your life structure and focus. It allows you to measure progress not by how much you've done, but by how aligned you've become. Every decision, every effort, every lesson begins to connect into a bigger picture. That's when growth starts to feel meaningful instead of mechanical. Clarity also shapes your resilience. When you know your purpose, challenges stop feeling like roadblocks. They become part of the journey. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this teaching me? That shift in perspective comes only when you're clear about your destination. If you don't know where you're going, every obstacle feels like a reason to quit. But when you have clarity, obstacles are just temporary detours. You still know which direction to face. The beauty of clarity is that it evolves with you. As you grow, your understanding deepens. What was clear a year ago might change, and that's okay. Clarity is not a fixed statement. It's a living relationship with your purpose. The more you experience, the more refined it becomes. Staying open to that evolution keeps your growth fresh and adaptive. Because sometimes losing clarity is not a failure. It's an invitation to rediscover what truly matters to you now. People often say, I don't know what I want, but that's rarely true. Deep down, they do know. They've just buried their truth under fear. Fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of not being enough. The key is to strip away those fears until only the truth remains. That truth is clarity. Once you find it, everything changes. You stop drifting. You start designing. You stop reacting to life. You start directing it. And that's when your growth becomes unstoppable, not because you're doing more, but because you finally know where you're going and why it matters. There's a reason so many people start strong but never finish. It's because they rely on motivation, that fleeting spark of energy that feels exciting in the beginning but fades when things get hard. Motivation is emotional, it comes and goes. Consistency, on the other hand, is a decision, a commitment that stays even when excitement disappears. Anyone can feel motivated for a day, but it takes discipline to keep showing up when no one is watching, when the progress feels invisible, and when the reward seems far away. That is where real growth happens, not in the moments of inspiration, but in the quiet repetitions that no one celebrates. Motivation is easy to chase because it feels good. It's emotional fuel, the voice that tells you you can do this when the path looks possible. But when obstacles appear, motivation evaporates. Suddenly that same voice becomes silent, and what's left is a choice to stop or to continue. Most people stop because they mistake lack of motivation for lack of ability. But you don't need to feel inspired to take action, you just need to decide that the action matters. Consistency isn't about feeling ready, it's about being willing. The days you don't want to do something are the days that define your future the most because they test your commitment instead of your mood. Think of progress like planting a seed. You don't see results right away, but you still water it every day. You don't dig it up every morning to check if it's growing, you trust the process. Consistency works the same way. Every small effort compounds over time, quietly building results that only become visible after persistence. The problem is that most people quit before the roots have even formed. They expect visible success in a world where invisible work creates it. Those who master consistency understand that slow growth is not failure, it's the natural rhythm of real change. The beauty of consistency is that it transforms ordinary actions into extraordinary results. A person who writes one page every day ends up with a book in a year. Someone who exercises for 10 minutes daily becomes stronger than someone who works out intensely for a week and then quits. Small, steady actions create momentum that big, inconsistent bursts never can. Consistency compounds, it multiplies effort through time. And once momentum begins, it becomes self-sustaining. That's when the habit replaces the need for motivation. Consistency also builds identity. Every time you follow through on a promise to yourself, you send your mind a message, I am someone who keeps going. That belief becomes your foundation. Over time, it shapes how you see yourself, not as someone who tries, but as someone who perseveres. And that shift is powerful because behavior follows identity. When you start to see yourself as disciplined, you begin to act that way naturally. You no longer depend on bursts of inspiration. Your standard becomes action. You stop negotiating with yourself. The question changes from, do I feel like doing this, to, is this who I am? That mindset is the difference between temporary effort and lifelong excellence. The truth is, motivation can start the journey, but consistency finishes it. Success is rarely the result of a single big effort. It's built through thousands of small, unremarkable moments of persistence. It's the writer typing late at night after everyone's asleep. It's the athlete training on rainy days. It's the entrepreneur still working after another rejection. None of those moments are glamorous, but together they create something unshakable: progress. Every repetition is a brick in the wall of mastery, and every skip day removes one. Consistency is how you build unbreakable walls around your dreams. One of the biggest misconceptions about consistency is that it means never missing a day or never failing. That's not true. Being consistent doesn't mean being perfect. It means that when you fall, you get back on track quickly. It means you no longer let one missed step turn into a complete stop. Consistency is about recovery, how fast you return to your rhythm after life interrupts it. Those who understand this never see failure as the end. They see it as part of the rhythm of growth. Another truth about consistency is that it's often boring, it's repetitive, quiet, and lacks the excitement of new beginnings. But that's exactly why it works. Boredom is a sign that something has become a habit. And habits, once built, carry even when motivation disappears. The greatest athletes, artists, and thinkers didn't succeed because they were constantly inspired. They succeeded because they did the work even when it wasn't exciting. They respected the process more than the feeling. Consistency also builds trust, not only with others, but with yourself. When people know you'll show up no matter what, they begin to rely on you. But more importantly, you begin to rely on yourself. You develop internal credibility. You stop doubting your ability to follow through because you've proven it, one small action at a time. That inner trust becomes a powerful source of confidence. You stop waiting for the right time or the right feeling. You simply act because you trust your own consistency to carry you. Motivation might get you started, but it's unreliable. It's like the wind. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. Consistency, however, is the engine. It's the force that moves you forward regardless of the weather. Once you build it, you become unstoppable because while others wait for motivation to return, you're still moving. And eventually that steady movement turns into mastery. You realize that the people who reach their dreams are not the most talented or the most inspired. They're the ones who refuse to stop showing up. Life will always be unpredictable. You can plan every step, prepare for every outcome, and still find yourself facing situations you never expected. Circumstances are rarely in your full control. People will disappoint you, plans will fail, and challenges will appear without warning. But there's one thing that always remains within your power: how you respond. The difference between those who crumble under pressure and those who rise stronger is not the weight of their challenges, but the strength of their response. Being unstoppable doesn't mean you never face obstacles. It means you refuse to let those obstacles dictate your direction. Your response is your greatest tool for transformation. Every setback brings two choices: to react emotionally or to respond intentionally. A reaction is automatic, driven by frustration, fear, or anger. It's what happens when you let the moment control you. A response, on the other hand, is conscious. It's deliberate. It comes from reflection, not impulse. The moment you learn to pause, breathe, and choose your response, you shift from being a victim of circumstance to being the author of your story. You may not control what happens to you, but you always control what happens within you. And that power is enough to change everything. There are people who spend their entire lives blaming circumstances, their upbringing, their environment, the economy, or other people's decisions. And while those things can influence your path, they don't have to define it. History is full of individuals who faced unimaginable conditions but still rose above them because they mastered their response. They focused on what they could control: their mindset, their effort, their perseverance. And that focus turned limitation into leverage. When you shift your attention from what's outside your control to what's inside it, you regain your strength. You stop fighting reality and start working with it. Control over your response also builds emotional resilience. It teaches you not to be driven by temporary emotions. You stop letting anger, disappointment, or fear make your decisions for you. When you learn to respond rather than react, you give yourself space to think clearly. That clarity allows you to act with wisdom instead of impulse. It's in that calm space between what happens and how you react that your real power lies. Every moment you choose composure over chaos, you're not avoiding emotion, you're mastering it. You're reminding yourself that circumstances don't break you. Your reaction to them does. Being unstoppable means understanding that challenges are not personal attacks, they are opportunities to evolve. Every difficulty you face carries a lesson. Some lessons teach patience, others teach humility, and some teach strength. But you can only receive those lessons if you stop resisting what's happening and start asking, what can I learn from this? That question transforms pain into progress. When you see challenges as teachers instead of punishments, your response becomes constructive rather than destructive. You stop wasting energy on complaining or comparing and start investing it into growing. The truth is, we often overestimate how much control we have over life and underestimate how much control we have over ourselves. You cannot stop the storm, but you can learn how to stand in it. You cannot control how others treat you, but you can control whether you internalize their behavior or rise above it. Every moment you choose peace over reaction, focus over frustration, and persistence over despair, you build inner strength that no circumstance can shake. That's what makes you unstoppable, not perfection, but composure. It's also important to recognize that taking control of your response doesn't mean pretending everything is fine. It's not about toxic positivity or ignoring pain. It's about acknowledging the reality of your situation while refusing to surrender your power to it. You can feel disappointed and still be determined. You can feel fear and still move forward. You can feel pain and still choose purpose. The most unstoppable people are not those who never feel broken. They're the ones who learn to rebuild while still feeling broken. They respond to pain with purpose and to failure with focus. Your response also determines your energy. When you constantly respond with anger, bitterness, or negativity, you drain yourself. You give power to the very thing that hurt you. But when you respond with understanding, patience, and strength, you conserve your energy for growth. You stop feeding the problem and start feeding the solution. Energy flows where attention goes, and when your attention is on how you respond, not what went wrong, you regain control over your direction. The most powerful realization in life is that you don't have to wait for circumstances to get better before you choose to grow. You can decide to improve your mindset, your habits, and your perspective even in chaos. That's what separates those who move forward from those who stay stuck. Circumstances will never be perfect. There will always be uncertainty, failure, and change. But your response can always be intentional, grounded, and focused. And when you master that response, you become unshakable. Being unstoppable is not about winning every battle or having an easy path. It's about building the emotional discipline to stay centered no matter what happens. When you take control of your response, life stops being something that happens to you and becomes something that happens through you. You turn every moment, even the painful ones, into fuel for growth. That's the kind of power no external force can take away, because it doesn't depend on circumstances. It comes from within you. And once you learn to use it, you truly become unstoppable. Rebuilding yourself and becoming unstoppable is not about creating a perfect version of who you are. It's about evolving into a stronger, wiser, and more self-aware version of yourself every single day. The journey is not easy. It demands that you let go of the past, confront your fears, and commit to growth even when progress feels invisible. But every time you rise after falling, every time you choose discipline over comfort, and every time you respond with strength instead of reaction, you prove to yourself that transformation is possible. True power doesn't come from never breaking. It comes from rebuilding after you do. You were never meant to stay stuck in old versions of yourself. You were meant to learn, adapt, and rise. The storms in your life are not there to destroy you. They are there to refine you, to strip away what's unnecessary and to reveal what's unshakable within you. When you choose clarity over confusion, consistency over motivation, and response over reaction, you reclaim control of your life. You stop living by circumstance and start living by purpose. You begin to understand that every ending can become a new beginning if you have the courage to rebuild. So no matter where you are right now, whether you're starting again, healing from failure, or searching for direction, remember this: you are not starting from zero. You are starting from experience. You are stronger, wiser, and more capable than you've ever been. Keep rebuilding. Keep rising, because the moment you refuse to stop growing, you become truly unstoppable.